I'm Garry Tan. I'm the founder and managing partner at Initialized Capital. I'm panicked about how many companies there are in the current Y Combinator batch.
Yo, Howard.
What's my name?
I think it's Howard something Linson.
How am I looking?
You're looking good for you.
Yeah, we just fucking wolfed down. What did we just eat?
Calzone H.
Literally.
Boom.
It's hard to find the right balance of Ritalin when you have a calzone. It's just everything I do is bass backwards. In Phoenix, I just have a routine here with you where I know where to eat and I know what I want, and none of it is good for me.
Well, yeah, I'm a bad influence. What can I say?
Twitter and carbs and stocks. It's just not. It's a miracle that I'm alive.
It is.
Yeah, and this itch won't go away. And I've been talking about it for about 7 podcasts. Speaking of itch, see what I did there?
That's a nice segue.
Yeah.
To what?
I don't know, but he may already be offended. But he's been so patient. He's guest number 600 on the show, which to me is like, season 1. But to him, feels like he's 590 people were asked ahead of him. And he's so polite, this Garry Tan. He's a unique individual. I've only met him a couple times, and it was in passing. And he says he's a fan. So he has a drinking problem, which immediately endears me more to him. So Garry Tan's resume is bananas, which is what we love having on Panic with Friends. They may not be famous to the everyday person, but they're famous to me. And I just can't wait to... I feel like I'm their friend because I know them from their successes and greatness and their constant contribution to the social discourse, good discourse.
Wonderful.
So let me say, what can I say about Garry? He's not that tall, so this is a good thing. So I have one thing that I think I beat him at. I tower over him. He is a Stanford graduate. He was at Y Combinator, I don't know, for 4 or 5 years in the heyday. He was partners with Reddit co-founder or founder Alex O'Haney. I can't pronounce his name. He's tall. And married to tennis superstar, and we share a few investments together. He's an investor in Rally Road. And then what else? Garry was a big seed investor in Coinbase.
Ooh.
Yes. So Canute, contain yourself. You can't ask him for money.
All right.
You know too much already. And what else about Garry? He is now Initialized Capital. I mean, he's a seed investor in Flexport, Instacart. The list goes on and on. And now he's got a YouTube show that he produces. I want to ask him about that because it's hard work. We know from doing this. And I think making videos even harder. So I'd like to get into that. And he created a early blogging platform called Posterous. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well. So he's been there, done that, done it all. And so it's off my chest. You can watch 1,000 podcasts, I'm sure, where he's talked about the past. And I kind of want to just focus on the future, because I don't get much time with people like this. So I just want to talk about what he's thinking about next. Because, talk to someone who's had this many hits or recognizes this many breakouts. I'd rather talk to them about what they think might be a breakout. What do you think?
Good idea.
Not that you care, but I care. It's my show.
I do.
So let's get Garry on.
I will.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys. Big fan.
Yeah, this is a thrill. We're not going to talk about what you want to talk about because it's my show. But
that sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm here for this.
You're here for this. So let's talk are you married?
Yep.
And do you have kids?
Yeah, 2 kids, 2 and 6. So I'm in it.
You're in it deep. And you're in San Francisco?
Yep.
What would make you move? You're there forever if you're still there.
Oh, I grew up in the Bay Area. So, I think this place is the golden goose. And, we did a survey of all our founders recently. Number 1 by far is still San Francisco. If you could choose anywhere in the world to start a company, our founders would choose San Francisco. But the next best is, now remote, whereas before it was New York. So it's an interesting move that is happening in the world today. And I think remote might overtake at some point, but it's crazy times.
It's crazy times, right? Because for me, it would be Tuscany and Coronado. So could I apply? Would I be in a potential batch, a Garry Tan batch, if I put that up top?
Hey, the best thing about being a remote startup is you could be in Coronado or, I would choose Positano myself, but I don't know what it's like to live there. I've only visited.
Yeah, Positano, I refuse to take the missus there because that's expensive. Tuscany is cheap.
Might not be allowed to leave.
Yeah, Positano is the place. So you're in Stanford, and where'd you meet your wife?
Oh, what's funny is obviously I started a blog platform, but we actually met via a blog platform when we were both in college. And
what was that blog platform called? Google Blogger?
Oh, it was called Zanga, actually. So it was BizStone's blog platform before he went off to work on all the various things.
Wait a minute. So
and Twitter.
Okay, now you're dating. Now you're making me mad because he's so smart and so young still, and you're young. So wait a minute. I thought Google Blogger was his first product. Like I thought
right before he was working on Zanga, which was the Asian blogger, basically.
Wow.
For like Asian teenagers, and you had blog rings, and I think we met on probably on the Intelligent Thoughts blog ring, which I'm embarrassed to say because that's so pretentious. But we were 21 years old at the time, so
well, the good news is
40. So
I've done so many of these episodes, and pretentious is not a word that's even been uttered. So congrats, right. You got a prize
all the way to number 600.
So were you born curious or obviously you were born smart, and you had, what makes a Garry Tan? Are you close with your parents? Are they still alive?
Oh, yeah. The crazy story for me is, Chinese immigrants, obviously, and my mom was a nurse assistant, always wanted to pass that LVN, sort of test to make it to the next level, but she didn't because of her language skills. And then my dad was, foreman at a machine shop. And, I lived in 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, sometimes food insecure. And the thing about me is that one thing I'm thankful for my parents that they really fostered was I was always obsessed with computers. So even when I was 12, 15, 5, 8, like when I was really young, I just loved computers. I learned to, write my first story on a keyboard on an IBM PC XT. And then later, I realized, we don't have a lot of money, but I have these skills that people are willing to pay me for. So I remember being 14 years old, learning how to make a web page. And then I started cold calling the Yellow Pages to get my first job that paid me, $7 an hour, then $14 an hour.
What do you think the hit rate was on the, was it like do you remember the first time you called someone? Because I sold Encyclopedia Britannica, which is like the equivalent of you cold calling on the Yellow Pages.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
what was the hit
weird,
rate?
Right?
What was the hit rate?
I called like 20 places, and then one of the places hired me, and they said, yeah, child labor, sign me up.
We did the opposite with our kids. It's an experiment, and we won't have the data for a while, but I have not let my kids know that the internet exists. They have Slinkies, and they play Battleship, and they're doing well. I mean, they're very polite, and they're both going to be butchers. No, so I mean, you knew they were going to. So your parents giving you the computer was the moment.
Yeah, and I helped pay for their. We took the money that I saved, and they bought their first house. So it's like really the American dream. And then I ended up getting to Stanford, which was another type of American dream. I feel very lucky about that because society has a great sort, and I made it on the other side, but now it's a weird time, not to get too serious, but you're like, a lot of us are on the right side of the great sort. A lot of people aren't. And then how do we make more prosperity? But, that's why I love San Francisco. This place has like the most social mobility in the world. And I think it's really important to preserve that.
The cycles are fast and furious in that city. So living with a 2-year-old with a nerd, successful investing, operating geek dad, what do you draw the line? Are you obsessively giving the 2-year-old stuff to play with, or is it just an iPad? What is it that a 2-year-old loves?
Oh man, 2's early. So
2's early. So then let's go 6.
Yeah, for the 6-year-old, he's been playing Minecraft since maybe 3.5 or 4.
So a 6-year-old is gaming?
Oh yeah, definitely. We're deep in Minecraft dungeons, but I just turned him on to Scratch Junior. So it's sort of, how, what our generation, we had Logo,
Hmm.
with the little turtle that was moving around, the first programming language for people, on the Apple II and things like that.
What about Roblox? No? Too
Oh,
young?
not yet. I think they turn into Roblox fans in another couple years, is what I hear.
Got it. Okay, so the 6-year-old, you're not holding back. You're not scared of technology.
Yeah, but Scratch Junior is great. It's a great place to actually teach the kid, this is what a function is, this is what a command is, and I don't know, he's really loving it. So I think it starts early.
And so obviously you like blogging, so I am going backwards because now I'm curious. So Posture, I remember using it. It was like a mobile first, lightweight, medium meets Tumblr. What was it?
Yeah, it was the big thing was post by email. So
Post
you
by
just
email.
emailed post@posterous.com, and the funniest thing was you could email and attach anything. And so what I didn't realize at the time, but now obviously, 10, 15 years later, you have perfect hindsight on everything that you've done.
Absolutely.
Um,
I'm the
what I
greatest
didn't
hindsight
realize,
investor ever.
I remember like, I think I probably answered your support requests and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the thing that I didn't know at the moment, the reason why we could grow to a top 200 site was the iPhone was new and apps didn't exist yet. And you had this beautiful phone that could take beautiful photos, and then you didn't really have a good way to upload them to
Huh.
Facebook or Twitter or any of your social networks.
So you were a little early.
Yeah.
There was
it
the cloud, there was the iPhone, but you think the App Store would have made the difference? Because I remember using it, and I love email, so I don't know. I don't remember what was the end story. Did you sell it?
Oh man, yeah. So Twitter ended up buying it, and I think Chris Sacca had a hand in that. But I do have a funny story. We grew 2 years straight, raising a small amount of money, 700 grand, and then $4 million Series A. But then I remember the day we stopped growing, and it was actually probably you could trace it to the day Instagram launched.
Huh.
And I didn't think much of the time because I was coding my 20 hours a day. And we got an email from our investor Chris Sacca. And he said, emailed me and my co-founder at the time, Sachin Agrawal, and he said, hey, what do you think of Instagram? And before I could reply, my co-founder replied, it sucks.
I love
And there
this.
was like a one-line email back from Chris saying, I'm very disappointed in you all. And then I never heard back from him again about it.
Because he had
But
invested in Instagram. But I thought, wasn't he one of
yeah.
your investors?
I mean, we were actually, yeah, he was one of our investors, and nobody remembers this now because people post a billion times a day on Instagram. But that one last page where you click post, Posterous when it
Was that?
launched, when Instagram launched, was one of those check marks.
Correct.
Today it just says I think Facebook and maybe Foursquare, and that's it.
And the U.S. government.
Yeah, that's right. That goes
And
without
Russia.
saying.
Yeah. So Chris, I mean, obviously he's an LP in my fund, so full disclosure.
He's
So I'm
amazing. Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, he was right place, pull the right trigger at the right, over and over again.
He
And
just
so,
kept firing.
yeah. And I think about that moment a lot because it's like that was the moment when we probably, Instagram built what we should have built. And I remember, for our Series A pitching Peter Fenton at Benchmark,
Was Twitter too.
and they didn't fund it. And he said, are you a network or a platform? Like network meaning like Instagram, like it's free and you want to grow it as big as possible and you could, monetize via ads. Or are you a platform like, WordPress or, something like your, or SmugMug or like one of the platforms you actually pay for. And we didn't know what we were doing at the time. And frankly, every founder has a crazy fog of war. So we said both. And we might as well have been like thrown out of the room at that point. So those are sort of the two things that I now use all the time when I think about, what should I be funding as a VC today, right?
But you also have such incredible power because now that I think about who was telling you this, I mean, these were like military grade, even in hindsight, investors. So maybe it would have been good to have a shitty investor and your family as investors because you would have just kept plowing along and figured out the other side. So it's like really interesting how much the people on your cap table have such influence over you. I mean, you had great...
Oh, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Whether they invest or not, they'll point the way because people just they'll see the part of the business that, when you're in the fog of war as a founder, you never get to see. So those conversations, whether they fund it or not, are incredibly important. Now I realize.
And so you have no second, like it was the right thing to do. You sell to Twitter. Saka was helping you because he was also an investor in Twitter and Instagram.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, basically Posterous grew unendingly until people figured out that there should be a really easy app to upload photos to a network. And then, we basically stopped growing. And then Twitter, the best thing about Silicon Valley, I will say, is even if you don't quite hit the mark, it all still works out, because if you've hired great engineers and you've built good stuff, Twitter in that time frame just really needed to up-level its engineering team. And it was cool to see the team that we built go on to help fix the fail whale and things like that. So it's,
I forgot
just
this
a fun
part
story.
of the story. So you were at Twitter. So how long were you at Twitter?
Oh man, you know what? I had a co-founder falling out like right when our growth flatlined. So that's when I went to work at Y Combinator. So I got all the fruits of the exit without having to actually work there. So
right.
I'm the
He
lucky
went
one.
to work in the engineering team there?
Oh yeah. I mean, basically, Sachin went and was a, lead PM, head of a lot of things on the product side. Our head of mobile went over to run the mobile teams for Twitter. It was just a good acquisition, I thought, for Twitter, and a really good outcome for us and our investors as well.
So that was years 07, 06, 08?
Yeah, so started in 08 and then exited in 2012.
Oh, so it was
But
4
by
years.
then I was already a partner at Y Combinator, which was fun.
Since I first cold called people and found Fred's blog and caught the Web 2.0 bug, it feels like there's never been a slowdown, and it's getting faster and faster. And I was joking that August is the new January. It's like, man, even in 09, you took August off. 10, 11, 12, 13. Now it's like 2021, and August is just any other month.
Well, now you can do Zoom like 10 hours a day, 5 days or 7 days a week, and, still not be done. So it's no rest for the wicked, eh?
So what do you do about balance in a world where you have endless opportunity?
Well, I think for Initialized, I mean, that's one of the things that I'm working really hard on. We did an open search for partners and principals. We made one great hire on the partner side, and, I expect at least one more there before the end of the year. We have a couple more principal roles that we're about to fill. So at the end of the day, now it's I think it's a barbell now, right? In venture, you are either, super high conviction, solo shot, solo entrepreneur, solo investor, solo, capitalist, or you go together as a group and you sort of, build up a big platform, and you got big guns. And so we're sort of choosing the latter. It's like, let's go and be one of those platforms. Let's build up the team that we're going to go and try to fund, frankly, 5 unicorns a year. And, that's the rate where we're at, sort of starting in 2016. I think that, well, we'll see.
Was it always initialized, and how did that come together?
I mean, honestly, once we were at Y Combinator, people came to us. I don't know if you know Alex Bangash over at TI Platform, but he gave us our first 2.5. He introduced us to our first institutional LPs. That was basically our first 7 mil fund. That's north of 55x. I think it's like 55x DPI now.
Oh my God, 55x! I can't even tell you, because I'm in a couple funds that I thought were good, but that's. So 55x, that was the first fund. And it was you. Who was it was just you and Alex?
Me, Alexis, and Harj Tagger, actually, who's a partner back at Y Combinator now. He actually hired me at Y Combinator. So it's been an interesting thing. I think that the bigger thing to me is that the number of companies that could succeed, the number of founders who are actually backable. And then, now, especially this year, it's kind of obvious how much money there is coming into our ecosystem. I think it's 10x, 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 right? Like 10 years ago, when I first started doing my first, frankly, like $5,000 angel investments, the YC batch was maybe 100 companies a year. I think they're pushing almost 1,000 a year now.
And that's what you said you're panicked about, which is what I'm panicked about. It's like, I'm panicked about managing life. Like, it's too good. Like, and I say that, and honestly, I joke about this. It's like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do because I'm busy, but it's all good.
Yeah. I mean, likewise. And I think internally we have a lot of conversations about FOMO. And I think number one thing that you and I and a lot of people, a lot of our friends need to do is just, no FOMO it. Like, if it's a no, it's a no. Someone will fund it. If it's a yes, like try to win and try to get to yes faster than everyone else. And then beyond that, is it hard? It's hard to do. Is it valuable? Is it fun? Like I like how Max Levchin like named his whole firm after that. It's like literally, if it's just something that you want to work on and it excites you and makes you, just wake up in the morning and be like, I'm excited that thing exists. It's like fund it.
So Tam aside, because I'm the same way. So hang on, what's the name of his firm? Sorry.
Oh, Max Levchin's venture fund is called Hard Valuable Fund, or HVF.
Oh, got it.
Which I am sort of obsessed with. I really like that.
Sorry, and what does that mean?
Oh, it means, I think that literally is trying to be like the value statement for the things that he wants to fund. Like it has to be hard, as in technically hard. He's a software engineer and loves things that, are not easy to do, right? It's like, what's the man on the moon sort of Manhattan Project? Like what are the things that are really hard to do and engineers can go and do that thing? And then valuable, I think, kind of encapsulates your TAM thing, which is like, is it something society actually needs and wants? Because there are lots of things that are hard, but nobody gives a crap about it, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't, move the needle on anyone's life. And then fun, I think, is just legit fun. Like, does it just make you more excited to, live?
I'm more like fun because I don't have any skills at coding or whatever. So obviously I have to be able to use it. So I can't do pre-product. My partner Garry does because obviously I can't code. So if it doesn't work, you don't need me because I can't help you. So it's been easy for me because I have no FOMO because I realize it's just endless opportunities. And therefore, I really just love, all my mistakes are stuff where I'm just wrong, which is fine. Wrong about the founder, wrong about this, but I can live with all that.
But when you're right, it's 1,000x, which is what a strange world we live in.
Because at least I did something. You can argue that my stuff hasn't changed the world or whatever. I don't give a shit about that. It's like, I don't know. I was put on this earth to just get stuff incrementally, stuff that I want to see.
Yeah, you know it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad. I just know it. What's that?
Vonnegut says Kurt Vonnegut, the writer, says that we're, put on this earth to fart around. So there's also that. I think there's like an element of fun in that too,
That is really what it feels like. And it's really, obviously it's great to see moonshots and, these people go into space and obviously solar and hard tech, but I wouldn't know it if I saw it. I don't know how to put those things together. So I applaud it and try not to be too cynical about it and then just go about doing my thing. After 55 return, is it hard to get up in the morning? And obviously you have a good life, but I'm saying, how do you go back to work when you've been on the moon?
Now to zoom out a little bit for me, this year has been a real year of self-introspection because I grew up poor and I realized actually I spent a lot of my life in that moment of trying to get rich, actually. I think that that's actually a very American trait. And I think a lot of people are in that mode. And I guess I realized there was an aspect of that of being afraid. I think that growing up, I actually also had fears of being destitute, of being homeless, of like losing my job, And I think that really came from, that was what it felt like when I was a teenager. And it was something that was real to, my family system. And I think now I've sort of exercised that. And instead, like we were saying earlier, it's like 10x bigger opportunities, 10x more people who could start companies that now should, and 10x more capital coming in. Like I think $100 billion a year in VC, it'll be $1 trillion a year in 10 years, easy. Like, I mean, I tweeted that thinking that was going to be controversial and people were like,
boring.
Yeah, duh. Boring.
Yeah. But that's just fair. People are the point is, in my world, you'll just get mocked. That's the stock market world where everybody just hates the Fed and hates everything because goddamn, there's been a 13-year basic bull market and people want to see a crash, versus the optimistic tech world, which can be cynical, but is like, yeah, you idiot, of course it's going to get bigger. Like, it's tech. Both are right, and I'd rather be you than the one always betting against the machine. I mean, here's the thing. It's not our fault the Fed's printing money. It's not our fault you live in America. And what's interesting about the people on your side of the business who went to Stanford and care less about the stock market, I don't think you care that much about it, is like, I would bet that you are not thinking about the macro, even at your now new size. Or do you like worry about what the market's doing? Should we make this investment? Do you worry about that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talk about it all the time because, what does it look like when, we have companies, the average company raising at like, a Series A 10 years ago was my Series A. It was like 4 on 20 post or something with Redpoint, right? And, today it's a 20 on like 150 with Tiger or someone like that, right? Isn't that, that's called a Series A now.
Well, I'd like to be the recipient of that series. I didn't think it was that high.
It's a good time to start a company. Got any ideas, Howard? We could, I'll be the hacker.
Yeah, we could start one. I'm just too old. It's never been a better time to start a company. It's also never been a better time to have product market fit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that's just blowing my mind. Like the companies in our portfolio that have product market fit, I just like, okay, I don't know what the rules are anymore. You have product market fit, ask for whatever the fuck you want. Like it's bananas.
And those companies have, 20 months to like 60 months of runway, like when they raise it. And then afterwards they have 10 years of runway.
Correct. And so we don't know what that's going to do to the world.
Yeah. But I think if the founders are good, it's like, they do the same thing with, 1 year of runway or 10. The real problem is, when it's not real, right?
Yeah. Some of the best advice I got when I started StockTwits that I didn't take was if you can raise 8, raise 80. And I was like, what am I going to spend 8 on? And that was the best advice. Of course I should have raised 80 if they're willing to give me 8. You know what I mean? Because I knew what I wanted to do. So I'm not going to begrudge these guys who have product market fit to go get after it.
Yeah. So it's weird because now it's a lot of people talked about the lean startup. The lean startup was the right thing when capital was scarce. And then now there's a different thing you have to be good at, which is how do you run the fat startup?
Love that.
And how do you do it that doesn't burn all the money and or destroy destroy the company?
And that is going to happen less because it's hard to piss the money away.
Yeah, you'd hope. I mean, people find ways.
They always will find a way. Good point. But I have not seen it as much. You almost can spot it. And you're just from their tweet. Like there's so many signals to spot waste. But we live in this incredibly leverageable, I call it social leverage, but there's an incredible leverageable world. So in a world that you now can do all this, did Coinbase, did you, because even in Robinhood, there were moments when it was obviously scary. Was there a moment where it was scary or no? Did you always feel comfortable that he was building something great?
You know what it was? It was all macro at that point. With crypto, you have these, months long where you're 90% down, years sometimes where, everyone who was smart, who came in the past couple of years, exit the business. And then when the last one leaves and, the door hits them on the way out, that's when the market comes roaring back again. And I feel like it's happened 3 or 4 times. It was interesting to listen to Brian talk on his earnings call yesterday where, we don't know what Q3, Q2 was awesome, 100%, quarterly growth. That's not a normal quarter for anyone, let alone for a business that's throwing off, billions in free cash flow per year. But we're also linked to, next quarter, next month could be the winter again. And, I think that's the repeating thing that everyone in Coinbase, but also everyone who's exposed to crypto has to just, diamond hands it, like, I know this is going to happen again. And the moment the moment when you really, really want to capitulate, that's when you should take all your free cash and try to buy some more.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, like Ethereum was at $75. And I remember staring at that and wondering if it will ever come back. And, today it's at 3,100, right? I think it's on its way back to 10,000, but, I think it'll revisit, I don't know, hundreds again, maybe 500, 800, 1,000, like who knows, like that, I'm mentally prepared for that. And so that's the scary part of being in crypto period, but certainly in things linked to crypto like Coinbase.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you understand the tech. I follow two people, and now I'm going to add you because I just forgot how close you are to crypto, but I only follow the people that I feel are doing this for the love of the game, right? Like Fred Wilson and Chris Dixon, they have nothing but reputation
Legends.
risk. I tell people, like, they're not in it for the money. It can only go bad for them because if they're wrong, everybody goes, you're an idiot. But I'm sure they had their doubts because I remember Fred buying it at 80 or 90 on the way down to 75, or he blogged about it. And I'm sure that didn't feel good. But, to those people go the spoils. And, I think the reputation risk is bigger than everything because so many people have the money now.
Yeah, that's right. And then, it's easy to look like a genius on one trade, I guess. There's plenty of people who look like geniuses on one trade. It's hard to be right on trade after trade.
And so what size check are you writing initially, or is it all over the map now?
We're around 2 to 4.5. I mean, we want to be smaller than the classic Series A firms, but we can be bigger than the classic seed funds. And, but I want to do early. I really like meeting people when they're, 2 people or 1 person and a demo and a crazy idea. So we want to keep doing that if we can. But it's tough. It's tough because everyone wants to do that now. And then you have 5 or 10 years if you figure out if you were right.
And is it crypto that you just think is exciting you the most, or what? Is there 2 things that excite you the most about the world?
Well, I mean, climate, I think, is increasingly becoming a thing that we think will come together. And then that's almost becoming a consensus bet. I mean, to look at $4 billion climate funds come together.
Yeah, Saka's doing one. I saw.
Yeah, Saka's doing it. And I mean, there are some very, very smart people, and I think they're voting with their feet and with, other people's dollars. And it's very impressive because it's going to be regulatory. But I think that we have the wherewithal to do it. I think the U.S. government will do the right thing, and we'll have new marketplaces that mandate carbon removal. And I think that might actually be a large percentage of GDP because that's what it's going to take to keep us underneath the catastrophic levels that IPCC has talked about. So, I think that that's really big, but it's also out there. But I don't think people are talking about it enough.
No, I actually was just on, I'm doing series of pods, and 2 VCs that I didn't expect to bring it up brought it up. So what makes it investable? The fact that there's enough smart people investing with you, or is there enough good founders working on simplified ideas of it all, or is it just the TAM's big enough now?
Oh, I mean, I think the TAM will go up with regulation. And if you have the right folks on policy, government drives a lot of this stuff, right? And I think that we have the climate for it. And I think it's going to go that way. And then when that changes, if it's a 2-sided marketplace, one side of that market will suddenly go up massively in demand. And that means the very companies to invest in will provide that supply. And those will be very big companies that drive a lot of revenue, but also hopefully save us from a catastrophe.
And then besides climate, what is it for you?
I mean, what's funny is I'm still a big believer in just plain old software. It's too boring to really even mention. On the other hand, like things like Flexport or TruePill, like these are, logistics. It's a large part of GDP. A lot of the transactions in those spaces don't have software day to day. I think if you talk to Ryan at Flexport, he talks a lot about what is the document that still runs logistics. It's the bill of lading, and that's a piece of paper, right? And like warning bells go off for me when you look at any industry in the world and you look down and there are file cabinets and fax machines and pieces of paper as like the operating thing that makes it work. And, I think that these are still one-time shifts, and I'm pretty excited to see, like we have companies in our portfolio like Rabus that is in, a space that you wouldn't, you'd have to go in the yellow pages, I guess, to like figure out that was a real market. These are, they sell aluminum rolls of aluminum, like tons of them, right? Like this is how you buy metals, right? Or Node just raised a ton of money. And, these are vertical marketplaces that the last generation of people who ran those businesses were not digital native. Like they didn't have an iPhone. They probably still wanted to, hold on to a form in triplicate or a file cabinet. And then now, it's people who take a photo of their lunch posted on Instagram, and then they go back to their desk and they're like emailing an Excel spreadsheet, right? And they don't want to be doing that. They want to be using smart software with structured data that makes it, better, faster, cheaper. So I think you're going to see a ton more flex ports. I think you're going to see a ton more Rabuses. These are, industries that are really obscure, but then really drive our economy forward. And these are like sort of one-time shifts. Silo was a company that we seeded, and Anish at Andreessen did the A. And that's
Anish, I know Anish. Was it fintech?
Yeah. It's basically a vertical marketplace that runs increasingly a lot of the food supply. So fruits, vegetables being sold by growers to distributors, then to grocers. And so, the funniest thing is 15 years ago, you would watch IBM or Accenture make these TV ads about e-business. And the reality is like, did they really do it? They sold all these, $1 million contracts that were, cost plus or something like that. These were consulting e-business contracts for marketplaces that didn't work. And then today in 2021, you have large pieces of the GDP that are going from paper pencil, like, steak dinner, enterprise sale, like long-standing relationships for like $1 million contracts to, digital marketplaces that have perfect pricing data, and it's better, faster, cheaper. And we're seeing it across the whole spectrum. So, it's kind of boring. It's kind of the thing that has been happening, but now it's happening in like some of the latest adopter industries out there.
No, we did it. We did Logixport out of Seattle with the third generation kid in that logistics business. And then Redpoint came into that, and then we did Produce Pay way back. So I got to look up Silo, and I'll back channel with you about that.
Yeah, there are plenty. I mean, I think that there's infinity numbers of things like that. And then the number one thing is you can't just be one of these like Stanford, Harvard, CS majors going to create like a photo sharing app again in 2021. Like you've got to actually go and find people who might have spent like, 5 years, 10 years in an old industry that like nobody knows about. And then, you pair that with some people who are great at building software, and shoot, you mint $1 billion company every single year if you do those.
But at the same time, decentralization comes along and everything will get built again, like different.
Yeah, we'll fund those things too.
Yeah, right? Like, so how do you, I feel like it's just too ginormous. You think it couldn't get any better because you want to like go, okay, this time it's, this time it's different. That's what everybody says is the top. But I got to say that this time, and who knows why, and I'm happy to be wrong. I mean, I expect to be wrong, but we have two parallel universes. We have a physical one and a digital one. And there's this whole digital economy. Like, I called it the flippening, where I ended up like, I don't even know what I'm doing in crypto, but I'm not bringing it back because I don't need to. And I don't even know what the rules are, but I haven't broken any rules, but I'm saying I don't even know what the rules of if I brought it back. Who am I supposed to tell, and where's it supposed to go, and how do I, you know what I mean? And so in that world, everything will just get built over again. It's like, I know they call it the multiverse, but I don't really like that term. It's just like, I feel like there's a digital economy, fully digital over there, and then there's the physical one that's partly digital.
Yeah. And, I think that that's one of the cool things about being an investor is you get to fund the first wave. And then because you funded the first wave, you can fund the second wave too.
So, right. The advice I give people is, I want to be a VC. So we'll start writing checks, because until you write the first ones, you can't write the next ones.
Yeah. Be in the right things, which is hard. I don't know. It's hard.
So what about media? I mean, obviously you love media. You built a platform for media, and now you went out and are doing a YouTube show. Why? What is it about it that you love, or what is it doing for you, or what are you just experimenting, or what's the goal?
Well, what I realize now is every business is actually a meme. So, and even Y Combinator, which like taught me to become a founder, I got to there because of media. It was because of Paul Graham's essays and Hacker News. So, in order for me to even, if you look at the core of a lot of people, like, yes, like Mark Andreessen created the web browser, but he also still created these essays that are sort of passed around as like, um, they're still held up as, this is sort of the lore that we use to learn how to make startups, right? So he's created media that transcends and then builds his brand, and people, like me coming up, it's like, shoot, I want to work with that person, right? And I, sought out Paul Graham because these are the breadcrumbs we can leave behind for people who want to do what, maybe some of these folks have done. And in that case, it's like, shoot, video is pretty untapped. I mean, I think podcasts are just starting still. And so video is even more nascent.
Nascent, and I would say because everybody says, because I've tried it a bit, I did Wall Strip, and here we are 15 years later, and I could probably do it again because no one even wants to do it. No one picked up the torch and did better business television, And here we are with YouTube and TikTok, and there's still, I don't see anything that interests me, and yet CNBC's still on the air. So yet I don't want to do YouTube again because it's such hard work. So
it's a lot of work.
Oh my God. So I have like hats off. Just looking at yourself in video is hard.
Oh yeah. I think you just have to get over it. Therapy helps.
So are you offering therapy if I started a YouTube show?
Oh yeah. For you, absolutely. Yeah.
Will you back a media company if I pitch you a media company?
I'd probably do it for my personal book. I mean, I definitely think that there is space out there for a Vox or Vice, but one that tells it from our angle, honestly. I get that big tech is evil and powerful, but, what about little tech? There's a whole set of things out there that should be told that nobody wants to cover because all they want to cover is like how evil Apple or Microsoft or whoever, it's the controversy of the day in business and tech media. And, nobody's covering your startups and my startups. And those stories are actually worth telling because that's how we beget 1,000 more startups like that.
So what do you read to stay up to date, or who do you read?
I mean, honestly, Twitter and YouTube is like my bread and butter, right? But Ashley Vance over at Bloomberg, I think his YouTube stuff is incredible. Like his episode on Shenzhen, amazing, right? And he gets couple million views per video that he does. And they're basically like mini documentaries about a lot of things we talked about, like climate tech or electric trucks and things, and I'm like, that's how it should be done. Like we need that times 1,000, and there should be a brand behind that. So I'm kind of thinking about how to start that.
Me too, by the way. So Ashley Vance at Bloomberg?
Yeah.
Oh.
And, he's a great author. He's a great journalist. And, he does these videos for fun. So I'm supposed to meet up with him soon. He's really impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I am fascinated. I'm putting my own money. I started my own Panic Productions just to fund stories about what's happened. Like I guess you call it breadcrumbs, and I agree. I just want storytelling about, these Reddit kids. You didn't invent this stuff. This stuff was around in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like it's just evolving and getting faster. But they need to they need to get their history from somewhere where they are willing to watch it. So you got to keep trying to like hit them over the head and say, do you like this? Does this help? You know what I mean?
And it's not all doom and gloom is the thing for me. The weird thing is like, I actually really love Vox. I love Vox video in particular, but there was an article about Starlink that I just like got so mad about. And then it went viral for the reason that I coined the term sky NIMBY. I was like, Starlink is going to connect our civilization no matter where you are on this planet, bring the internet and knowledge and learning to every bit of this planet. And yet the sky NIMBYs are mad because the article is about how you can actually see some of the satellites in the sky for certain parts of the year. And it went viral on Twitter. among our people, right? Among people who believe in tech, because Sky NIMBY is a funny term, but then it went sort of big with, uh, sort of the socialists and the people who actually really hate tech.
Yep.
So I got like burnt alive by, I got revered and like retweeted by one side of Twitter and then completely burnt alive the other side. And, that's what really made me realize, hey, there are actually people out there who, hate tech. And I sort of get why, but they also they don't see the things that you and I see. And I don't think that media shows them it, actually. They don't show the process of creation. They don't show founders sitting down and like making a thing that didn't exist before and making it better for other people. And, Elon has his faults. On the other hand, like, I think that there's a reason why he is so revered by people who love technology.
Yeah, I think documentaries will help. Storytelling, young people like documentaries, so there'll be more of them. You know what I mean? We've run out of good stories to tell. Netflix is going around the world now because Israelis tell good stories, so like storytelling's moving. And it's a global thing. I'm super bullish on content, even though it's hard because it almost democratizes anything. Like if you can tell a story, you don't have to be a tech guru. You just got to be able to tell a story. And everybody has stories.
Yeah. And now the weird thing that I learned from doing YouTube is that you can do it from very small numbers, not knowing what you're doing. And then as long as you're just consistent about it and you have a good story that people actually want to hear, it'll grow. And so, a year and a half ago, I started not knowing what the heck I was doing and doing all the filming, editing, scripting myself. And then at some point, I got to 50,000 subs. It went from like 10,000. Once I hit 10,000, I got to 50,000 fast. And then I hired a team. And now that team has been working with me since the beginning of the year. And we hit 168,000. So it's something that, month on month, like you can grow it like a startup. I've been looking at 20% month on month growth since the beginning. And I'm like, yeah, I want to keep funding that with my time.
And what's the name of the podcast?
Oh, it's just under my name. It's just Garry Tan on YouTube. And that's one of the hacks I realized. Like people attach to people very easily. And then people attach to brands with great cost. And so
Love it.
It was easy for me to have a relation. What it is a parasocial relationship. Like tens of thousands of people I asked to subscribe and click the bell icon. And then when I post, they just watch every single thing. And it's like, they're 10 minutes with me every single week.
So once a week, 10 minutes.
Yep.
And who chooses the subject? You?
Yep. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, whatever I think is interesting, I just try to put out there.
Yeah, I'm not a YouTuber, but I haven't figured out the right amount of time. When I did Wall Strip, it was 4 minutes. And I think now because of finance, guys are doing 2 hours. And I'm like, guys, I don't have 2 hours.
It's too long. Nobody
and
has
TikTok, I have no interest in. So I got to rediscover YouTube.
And what also taught me that this could be doable? I mean, I've been doing it for a year and a half. My buddy Justin Kahn started sometime early or late last year, and he got to like 130 real fast. And I think that we can actually just, do that now. I think you could get to 100, 130.
If I write good stuff, if I make good content, can we partner on this? Can I glob onto your subscription
that's the best thing
stuff?
is growth mindset maximum. Because if it helps me and it helps you, because it's really just the algo. Like if we get linked up, if my audience likes your stuff and your audience likes my stuff, then anytime we post, like we help each other. I realize this because if you look at photo YouTube, like if you ever want to buy a camera, it's basically Peter McKinnon, who has 4 or 5 million subs, and then his 2 or 3 friends. And almost all of the videos that people watch about Sony and Canon cameras are him and his buddies, because they started posting 5 years ago about it. And the algo just knows that if you watch one of these, you watch the other ones too. And Google just wants you to stay on the site and never click off.
Bastards. And so when did you get comfortable? How long did it take you to get comfortable?
Oh, it took at least a year.
I don't know if I'm willing to do that. And that's good advice. You can't just do this and be an overnight success.
Yeah, no, you just got to push through the dip. I mean, my favorite thing is Ira Glass talking about this. If you have taste, the thing that you make will not be as good as what your taste dictates. And then that's the moment when you want to quit. And if you quit, you'll never get good enough. But if you keep going through that dip, you'll actually get good enough, and then you'll actually be that good. And that's like the key to all creative endeavor is, that moment when you look at what you made and it sucks. And then knowing that that sucks is actually great. It means that you're going to make it.
Huh. And now that you're on doing this YouTube, you could change one thing about your face. What would you change?
I don't know. I could use a stronger chin, I think.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, I could talk for hours. I'm going to have you back if that's okay. I just want to be respectful of your time. It's Garry Tan, easy to follow on Twitter and YouTube. I really appreciate the time, obviously.
Oh, likewise.
I probably didn't get to talk about what you wanted to talk about.
No, not at all. I'm always down.
The way I do these podcasts is like, you wing it. And I had a million questions, got to a few of them.
Happy to have you on the channel. Happy to reciprocate. And then if you ever do YouTube, you would kill.
And what do you think I should do if I was knowing what you know and not knowing me well?
You should wing it.
Wing it, but should I talk about what I like to talk about? Or
yeah,
should
absolutely what you want to, well, whatever you want to talk about, and then honestly, it'll be something your audience already cares about because they care about you.
And do you have guests or never?
Oh yeah, I have guests all the time. So you got to come on mine and we'll, we got to hang.
All right, I'll be there tomorrow. What time do you want to do it tomorrow, Garry?
I'll get it all set up.
So thanks for doing this. I'm glad it's so fun to get the backstories and see people that just keep pushing forward. Who do you look up to? Who's your inspiration now? Obviously, Paul Gray. His essays are great, but who do you think is doing it great on the content side?
Oh, on the content side, man. I just talked to Ali Abdaal. He got 1 million subs. MKBHD, like Mr. Beast. These are all like incredible people. My buddy Sriram Krishnan over at Andreessen.
Sure. He's
killing it both on Clubhouse and on YouTube. So there's a lot of interesting stuff out there. And the best thing is like the more smart people make stuff, we get into a little cabal and we like link to each other and collab. And then we like take over this algorithm together is the thing. So let's do it.
But then don't they change the algo?
I hope not.
Well, you're not doing anything illegal. You're just doing your good content, and Google recognizes that.
This is why, Patreon exists, and, you got to have your own email list. You have to have your own Substack, and, maybe now you have to have your own community, and they're all different, your own Discord server. So
right, and you just said, fuck it, let's just play the YouTube algo game.
Yep.
I love it. You didn't overthink it. There's a million ways to skin it. I totally agree with your strategy. I think Substack is for some, and there'll always be this stuff. But I think when the platform's that big and there's certain rules that you play by and there's little hacks you can do, just consistency is what matters. And I think that's good advice. You're never going to be up to the taste that you think, yep, that's really good stuff. The last question. What's your favorite thing on Netflix that you've seen recently?
Oh, man, I'm watching Narcos Mexico. And then I just am on book 3 of the Don Winslow trilogy about all of the crazy stuff happening in Mexico with the drug war from like the 80s till today. And it's all fictionalized, but you can look up every single crazy thing that happens in that book and it links to a real thing that happened in the U.S.-Mexico drug war.
I just watched this Border Town, I don't know if it's a documentary or half-true story on Netflix. I forget the name. It was just a boring kind of docudrama about a border town and what the cartel does. And I'm like, if 1% is true and I know 90% is true, that is the craziest stuff going on down there. It's sad.
Yeah. And the brutal thing is like, drugs are something people want, right? And and that's probably the scariest thing. I think that's the takeaway from a lot of these fiction works about what really happened is, it's like Americans want drugs, right? And maybe that's where it needs to be solved, but that's another episode.
All right, my man, be safe. Have a great rest of the summer. Thanks for doing this.
All right, we'll hang again soon.
Okay, cheers. That was fun.
Amazing.
Yeah, we've had some fun conversations. Obviously, you can talk to Garry forever, but the excitement, the ability to just engage is what excites me, because that's where I'm at. It's like, right. You don't have to do it. I don't think I'll ever do climate, but I'm really fascinated, as you know, by media and what we could be doing. And
exactly.
All right, this Panic with Friends. Thanks for listening, everybody. I, too, have a subscribe button. So if you go to Spotify, Google, Apple, or whatever your favorite podcast app is, Just hit subscribe, tell your friends. Once a week, we come at you with episodes of me chatting with what I think are the best investors, traders, entrepreneurs, trying to get 1 or 2 steps ahead. No inside info, just simple stuff on how to trend follow and build your own Peloton and be a consistently good investor. So thanks, Knut. We'll see everybody soon.
Howard Lindzen is the founder and general partner at Social Leverage. All opinions expressed by Howard and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Social Leverage or StockTwits. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for decisions. Guests may maintain positions in securities discussed in this podcast.
War from like the 80s till today, and it's all fictionalized, but you can look up every single crazy thing that happens in that book and it links to a real thing that happened in the US-Mexico drug war.
I just watched this Border Town, I don't know if it was a documentary or half-true story on Netflix, I forget the name. It was just a boring kind of docudrama about a border town and what the cartel does. And I'm like, if 1% is true and I know 90% is true, that is the craziest stuff going on down there. It's sad.
Yeah. And the brutal thing is like, drugs are something people want, right? And and that's probably the scariest thing. I think that's the takeaway from a lot of these fiction works about what really happened is, it's like Americans want drugs, right? And maybe that's where it needs to be solved, but that's another episode.
All right, my man, be safe. Have a great rest of the summer. Thanks for doing this.
All right, we'll hang again soon.
Okay, cheers. That was fun.
Amazing.
Yeah, we've had some fun conversations. Obviously, you can talk to Garry forever, but the excitement, the ability to just engage is what excites me, because that's where I'm at. It's like,
right.
You don't have to do it. I don't think I'll ever do climate, but I'm really fascinated, as you know, by media and what we could be doing. And
Exactly.
All right, this Panic with Friends. Thanks for listening, everybody. I, too, have a subscribe button. So if you go to Spotify, Google, Apple, or whatever your favorite podcast app is, just hit subscribe, tell your friends. Once a week, we come at you with episodes of me chatting with what I think are the best investors, traders, entrepreneurs, trying to get 1 or 2 steps ahead. No inside info, just simple stuff on how to trend follow and build your own Peloton and be a consistently good investor. So thanks, Knut. We'll see everybody soon.
Howard Lindzen is the founder and general partner at Social Leverage. All opinions expressed by Howard and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Social Leverage or StockTwits. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for decisions. Guests may maintain positions in securities discussed in this podcast. Upon for decisions. Guests may maintain positions in securities discussed in this podcast.